requirements. So we did that, and they provided some significant comments, and we have incorporated those on this revised policy. And the hope today is that the staff is going to walk you through what the policy really intends to do. And if you have any questions, we should be able to answer, hopefully. If not, we can probably bring back those answers later on. But the objective today is hopefully, if you feel comfortable for us to bring an AIS for you to formally approve this policy at a future board meeting. With that in mind, Robin?
Thank you, Romero. I'd like to provide just a little bit of background. About 2 years ago, the county launched an initiative to update all our county policies and consolidate our various policy manuals into a single consolidated policy manual. And we were just starting to make some progress. You'd approved the procurement policy and the pandemic hit, and we put the entire project on hold. So we are restarting that now, and you're going to start to see policies come before you where we're asking for your approval. Today, we're looking at 2 policies. The major policy is the electronic signature policy, but very quickly, I'd like to introduce to you the policy framework. This is the framework that was developed by the policy committee. The committee has representatives from every office and department. They put together the format of the new policies and the process. The policy framework outlines the process that we will go through to develop and update all of our policies. You see the process is that the policy owner, which is me for the county, assigns or approves an initiative for any particular policy. The policy owner then will write the policy, draft it. It'll go through the policy review committee. It then goes to review to any specialty groups within the county, like if it's IT related, it'll go to the ITC committee. If it's finance, it'll go to the financial management committee. If it's HR, it'll go to HR. So it goes through specialty review and then goes out to review to all offices and departments. At that point, once we've incorporated all the input, it goes through legal and then comes to the board for final review and approval. So that is the policy framework. We've been working with this framework for 2 years now. We came to our attention that we don't have any formal record of the board having to approve or having had approved the framework. So we are asking you to approve the policy framework just because we need your formal approval on all policies. The second, any questions about the framework?
Just jump in if anybody has something.
I don't know at the time, you know, I don't know if this question fits at this point in time or not, but when it comes to commissioners' legislative signatures on votes they've taken, it seems like we're already doing something with electronic signatures. I've given authority, at least to my assistant, to do it. So what's the difference between what we're going to do and what we've been doing?
So we're jumping now to the electronic signature policy. If commissioners have no questions about the framework, we'll move to that and we can address Commissioner Edwards' question.
My only question is just when it comes to both of these policies, my main concern is just with legal review and making sure that we're square with. I don't have any strong concerns or opinions about what I've seen. I just need to make sure that Elizabeth is signed off or the appropriate member of the prosecuting attorney's office.
Right. These have both been through legal. Okay, so let's go to the electronic signature policy. And I was kind of hoping that Megan would be with us this morning.
She is. She's right here.
Okay, great. So Megan, perhaps you could describe to the board the process that this policy has been through.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. In July of last year, I was asked to draft the electronic signature policy because under the, oh gosh, I gotta find the name. The Uniform Electronic Transaction Act. It allows for us to send and receive electronic signatures. We just need to have a policy in place for signed off by the board to allow us to continue doing electronic signatures. Law allows it, but law also requires us to have a policy in place. And so we drafted the policy in July, and it was drafted and reviewed through the original legal review in September. Then we sent it out to the chief deputies and appointed directors group. I received a fairly significant amount of feedback. The main concern was the how, which this policy doesn't really address. The policy is addressing the what and the why. The how is going to be addressed by IT after the policy is approved by the board. IT is going to be looking at the requirements and moving forward with finding a system on how people can use electronic signatures in a consistent way. Some other feedback I got was around, in the original draft, it had mentioned that we needed to create a position, basically. Even though it wasn't actually creating a position, it was assigning someone to manage this. And that was removed because filing and retention of signature forms is something that is already done. And so it didn't need to be called out, just the requirement that things be filed and retained is called out in the policy instead of specifically putting it with a administrative duty that it needs to be done specifically for this policy. So that was removed. And then the last thing that was in there was that people were concerned that there was another form that we were creating instead of using one of the already developed signature authority forms, which is the financial services one, I believe. And upon reviewing that, it didn't meet the needs of this policy. So we did need to create an additional form that calls out specifically this person is allowed to send, receive electronic signatures and who the delegator is. So we did have to create a second form for it. But those were the main concerns. We've addressed those concerns, and it has gone through legal review. And so hopefully you are ready to move forward with this policy.
You want questions?
Yes.
Robin?
I do. I'm still wondering about what's the difference between what we've been doing and what we want to do.
Maybe just, if I may, say, formalizing the process. That's really what the policy does. And in reality, really is not a change because you already authorized in some instances to use an electronic signatures. And we use that in the Commissioner's office. Very seldom, depending on the documentation in the purchase of the matter. No,
You're pretty garbled.
can you hear me?
Yeah, that's way better.
I'm sorry. So I was trying to address Commissioner Edwards' question. There is really not a fundamental difference on this policy. It's just formalizing the process. Formalizing the process not just in the Commissioner's office, but across the county. And I think that is a good way just to frame this electronic policy that all of us, offices and departments, can follow the same way to do it. And also what it does is really provides the latitude of offices and departments to put those thresholds as to when electronic signatures should be put in place. And that is part of the authorization form that is attached to this policy in the back. So to answer Commissioner Edwards' question, really is just to formalize in a policy the electronic signatures that we might be conducting for offices and departments.
Then a follow-up question. I mean, whatever we've been doing has been legal, I hope, you know. Is there some RCW that covers it, or a past county ordinance, or is that what we're creating as a new county ordinance?
So the reason that we're doing this now is that RCW was changed. The Uniform Electronic Transaction Act was passed in 2020. And so that requires that we have a policy in place. And that's what we're doing. We're just putting a policy in place in accordance with state law.
Yeah, and on that Uniform Act, that's an RCW then that I take it?
Yes, that's correct.
I didn't see a copy of the RCW. Is it in here?
RCW is quoted in here, chapter 1.80 RCW, and no, you don't have a copy of that, but I'd be happy to provide one.
I mean, I think we ought to refer to it, it is all, and maybe have it at least available for review. My other question is, from the commissioner's standpoint, one of my concerns would be that whatever gets a signature put to it, I'm hoping we've had a public vote on that particular issue and a record of that public vote. Is that part of this process?
So this is not specific to the board, but jump in, Romero.
Maybe I think the question is a little bit different though. I think the question is whether staff is putting electronic signatures without the board's consent. And that is not what we do. And we have never put a signature without the board's consent. So I'm a little surprised about that question, because we have never put any signatures on any legislative action before the board has taken any action. So, and again, I'm surprised and a little concerned about that question, Commissioner. If there is any indication from your perspective that we have done that, I would love to hear that and love to know that.
No.
That is not part of this policy. This policy is just the allowance to use electronic signatures.
Yeah, no, I don't know of any case, nor am I suspicious of anything. I'm just saying that if we're going to have something and we've got some kind of legislative authority that we're taking action on, I think anything that we're going to sign that would take an electronic signature because of a time frame or something like that, I'm just hoping that there is something that addresses the why. Why are we signing this in a remote situation, or did we take a vote on it? That's all. I'm hoping there's going to be a record of anything that we do. That's where I'm coming from.
There is always a record, Commissioner.
It's a record.
There's always notes, and there's always re-record the vote in every single action the board takes.
So if you look at
Commissioner
the
Mejia has a question. Sorry.
Oh, pardon me.
Sorry, Robin. I just, what kind of documents would require an electronic signature?
So any type of document might have an electronic signature. If you look at the form on the last page
Okay.
of this policy, you'll see a list of the document types that the authorization form approves a person to sign. You know, if for example, Romero was authorizing me to sign something using an electronic signature, it would be, I hereby authorize Robin Campbell to provide a signature for the following types of documents: maybe I'd be authorized for contracts, travel, timesheets, and journal entries, and that would be all. And that would mean that I can't do an electronic signature for resolutions, public defense documents, etc. So we would be specifically authorizing certain people to sign in certain circumstances. That's what the form is all about. And as you will see, for a resolution or ordinance, they have to be as approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you.
So I think that answers my set of questions. So what I think I understand is that the law doesn't preclude us from using electronic signature on any kind of document. It just says you have to have a systemized policy in place. And this form will essentially create that very clear mechanized delineation of for each individual official, what they've authorized it to be used for. And it could go all the way to the chair of the Board of County Commissioners authorizing it for a resolution or ordinance. I would be permitted to authorize that if I so chose. Is that a fair summary of what we're trying to do here? Okay. Okay, well, that pretty much clears up my set of questions. Commissioner Edwards, did you have something else?
No, but Megan does here.
Okay, I can't see Megan.
Sorry. I just wanted to add that that's why there's also the addition of other documents at the bottom. There was a little bit of concern that it didn't encompass every single document that could potentially be signed. And so that's why we've added those others. And this is a Word document, so if there are more, people can add onto it, and it won't exclude any documents. They just will have to add to it. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. It doesn't limit to these particular documents. These were just the most visual ones, I guess.
Common. These are
Yeah,
common.
the most common, yeah. And then I also wanted to add that the courts are exempt from this policy. They have other guidelines that they have to follow for electronic signatures, and they're already implementing that and following it. So the courts would be exempt from this particular policy.
Yeah, and maybe just an additional comment. So looking from a different perspective, this just provides an allowance to do electronic signature. By board considering approving this policy, it doesn't send a requirement that every single document has to be electronically signed. It just provides the allowance and the flexibility in aligning to the new state law. So there is not a requirement. All of a sudden, this policy is maybe approved by the board, and then everybody has to have electronic signatures. No, it's just the allowance and provide the flexibility.
Ramiro, will these decisions though be made at an individual level or department level, or like, for example, can I make my own set of decisions, or do the commissioners need to agree that this is what the commissioner is going to do, or if it's public works, or can it be Jennifer Walker does one thing and the county engineer does another thing, or is there going to be consistency of some level? Who will make the decision of how this form gets filled out?
My observation on that will be is the head of the office and departments will have to take the lead on that. And if in the commissioner's office, if it's a delegation of electronic signature, that conversation needs to occur among the board members. And that's probably what I envision how this should be implemented.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
On page 2 of 6, on the policy information, I guess is what it is, it says relevant laws and other supporting information. And where's that? Which one of those is that RCW that was changed to require this? Or
Well, on page 1, the first bullet, 1.1.
So Commissioner Edwards, you are looking at the policy framework. That's the policy on policies.
yes.
Set that aside, and we're talking about the electronic signature policy.
Yeah. Okay. I've got that here as well.
So it's right here. RCW listed. So the first sentence.
So it's under RCW 1.80.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that we're trying to micromanage what the county manager kind of ought to be doing, is the way I look at this. I think we have a completely different role as the legislative body for the county. And I'm not saying we won't buy off on it if that's what it takes, but for us to try to go through and micromanage the Public Works Department or something, I just don't see that that's our role, but maybe it is. Maybe it says so in the RCW. I have not reviewed the RCW. And maybe I should.
The RCW requires that a local jurisdiction or any jurisdiction has a policy regarding electronic signatures,
Mm-hmm.
and the Board of County Commissioners enacts policies. That's part of your legislative duties for the county.
And we can't assign that to the county manager.
No, sir. We've talked to Elizabeth about that. That is the duty of the board.
Yes, and also, for instance, let's say the Public Works Director, she can choose not to have any electronic signatures. She can choose to have all pen and ink. So, and again, this does not require in this case, the Public Works Director to have electronic signatures. She can absolutely choose not to, implement any, but what it does is the allowance if she chooses to do so.
I guess my next question will be, well, what's the point if everybody gets to do their own thing?
If we
Point is
didn't
you
have
have
a
to have-
policy, they wouldn't have the ability to choose.
You have to have a system that kind of keeps a consistent process. Is kind of what they're looking for. But yeah, you're right. It could be a real patchwork of different approaches across our county departments, from what I can see.
I mean, I think I would question that, whether any division head could make that determination against your will as the county manager, because I look at them as working as direct reports to you. And if you tell them you're going to do this, I guess they better do it, the way I look at it. I mean, it looks like we're really delving into a bureaucratic nightmare, and we're trying to get every little thing exactly right here at the county commissioner level. And that's what I'm questioning, if we need to go to that level. That's what I'm wondering about.
So as far as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this is just to basically comply with an RCW that's in place for us to keep doing electronic signatures.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay, so in order for us to keep doing electronic signatures, we have to have this policy in place, regardless of whether directors choose to follow it or not.
Or elected officials.
Or elected
yes.
officials. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So kind of, I mean, Commissioner Edwards, to your point, I mean, in a sense, I agree with you, which is why at the beginning I kind of said my only concern really is are we following the law, passing legal muster? But kind of as I hear about this, I mean, I guess we could, in theory, really get down into the micromanage weeds and have a policy that tells, folks what they're going to be allowed to use. But this is from what I can see, this is about as non-directive as we could possibly be, because we're basically allowing the departments and elected officials as well, I would imagine, to figure out what works best for them. So in a sense, it's like the commissioner is doing the minimum to kind of authorize this approach in accordance with the RCW, but not really dictating to any one group, at least from the commissioner level, what they need to do or what they're going to be allowed to accept and not. I would imagine we have the power to go much further than this, but the suggestion is that we're just going to keep it from the commissioner standpoint, really high level. If Ramiro wants to work with the different departments and try to come up with something more specific, then that's his prerogative, I guess, in terms of, but I see this as not, as trying to do the minimum and be as you know, as less micromanaging as we can.
Let me just follow up on that, sir.
Yep.
On the policy title page, so it'd be page 1 of 4.
Yep.
Under A, implementation, 1.3, and going all the way down to 1.3.3,
Okay.
it says, no, 1.3.4, if a law requires a signature, an electronic signature satisfies the law. And we've got, you know, a lot of verbiage that goes along with this, but why couldn't that just read, if the law requires a signature, an electronic signature satisfies the law, as long as authorized by the signator? Why couldn't it be that simple if we're going to have it? I mean, that's the way it's been working. When I get asked on occasion, because there's a time frame and I maybe wasn't readily available, could we use your electronic signature? And I've said yes, because we voted on it, we discussed it, it was part of the public record, if you will. I don't know why it couldn't be that simple for individuals. I don't know
We
why.
can certainly add that, Commissioner.
Pardon?
Of course we can add that.
You're suggesting to add that language, Commissioner?
Well,
in
I'm
that
just
section?
saying, why couldn't it just be that simple for everything? I mean, just,
And not have the rest of the policy?
I don't know, why does the law say, it says we have to have a policy, but does it dictate what that policy ought to be and try to figure out for every possible scenario we've got it covered? That's what I'm trying to simplify what to me looks like a bureaucratic process of it doesn't matter anyway, basically. I mean, we're gonna, and when I say that, I mean, I find it hard to believe that the county manager would tell a department, well, you can do whatever you want. But that's, I mean, I'm not being critical, I'm just saying the way the whole thing works, that isn't the way it would work if I was running the show. I mean, I'd be having some pretty strict guidelines in there. So if we can just have something simple, I'll give the authority to do it. And as long as we meet the policy requirements, why does it have to have a whole bunch of other stuff in there? That's all I'm saying.
I just want to point out it's 10:03. We have another briefing at 10. We'll either need to extend this or continue it or cut it off and say we're done. I'm not sure which of those 3 options we're headed for.
Yeah, your call, Commissioner. Staff's recommendation is for the board having a consensus or not, for us to bring an AIS for you to consider approving these 2 policies. That's the recommendation from staff.
I certainly don't see any reason we,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't have additional discussion on it until we come to some type of a conclusion. Either we agree or we don't, we vote or
Well, now
whatever.
we've got.
But I mean, it seems complicated the way it's done now.
Can we put it on for Tuesday morning, and that'll give us a few days to sort of think about it and look at it now that we've gone over it.
Sounds good, sir. We'll bring Tuesday morning, and if you have the time to review, if you have any comments, suggestions to the policy, that's certainly within your purview. Please don't feel that what is presented to you is something that you are bound to consider approving. So if you have any comments, suggestions, staff welcomes that. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll adjourn this, and then we're on a different Zoom for
Yes, sir.
Okay, well then we'll reconvene in just a moment or 2.